For those of you who know me, you know that I have had my ups and downs with life, just like a lot of people do. But I guess for the sake of telling my story, I'll start from the beginning. I was born in Winter Park, Florida, to my two lovely parents, Regina and James Reed, although most people preferred to call my dad Jimmy. We were a rather wealthy family. My dad had his own masonry company, and my mom helped take care of me. I was born on July 5th, 2000. My birth wasn't necessarily a hard one, but it did scare my parents. When I first came into the world, I would sporadically stop breathing, and despite the concern from my parents, especially my father, the nurses said everything was alright. Eventually, when they saw it for themselves, the concern became obvious on their faces, and it was indeed not normal. The nurse grabbed me out of my father's arms and ran down the hallway with my dad following suit. It wasn't anything really serious. I had some fluid in my lungs from the birth, and eventually they were able to get my breathing regular again. So my parents were finally able to relax. I was a very happy baby, and I didn't cry a whole lot. Some of my favorite things when I was little was Barney, the Wiggles, and of course Dumbo. I was very much a movie baby, and that still trickles into who I am today. When I was almost 1, I found out that I was going to be getting a baby brother. I was very excited, and when my little Pudge Ball was born, I couldn't stay away from him. His name is Alex, and he's the best baby brother a girl could ever ask for. If only he listened to me a little better. We were each other's best friends, and I don't remember a time we weren't together. I particularly liked the holidays because on Easter, I could walk up behind him and take his Easter eggs. We also had a lot of animals growing up, mostly cats, but we did have one dog. We named her Leia, and we still have her to this day. Later on, we would eventually also get another dog named Nyla, who I love very dearly. I eventually started preschool and made some good friends. My best friend consisted of a boy named Troy and a girl named Abby, who had a hearing aid. We went on a lot of school trips together, like going to SeaWorld, and they truly were awesome friends. I also got to go to many places like Disney, Universal Studios, and Six Flags all the time, but I don't really remember them. When I was 5 years old, things had gotten a little hard financially, and my parents had to file for bankruptcy. We also decided it was a good time for a move, and when my mom asked where I wanted to move, I said West Virginia. I chose West Virginia because I desperately wanted to be around my grandmother more. I called her Bo. Even though I thought I was picking the place to move, I knew that my mom had already wanted to come here so that she could be with her family. So we packed up our stuff and moved here. While we were getting our place situated, we stayed with my grandmother and my aunt. Then right before school was due to start, we moved in. My house was extremely different from the one that we had in Florida. First off, it was in the middle of nowhere and it was surrounded by the woods, and we only had a few neighbors who we quickly became friends with. But as far as our house, it wasn't really called a house, it was a trailer. It wasn't the best trailer in the world, and it actually had a lot of problems, but as a child, I didn't really notice or think of it too much. I was just happy to be there. When I started first grade, I had a lot of friends, and it kind of stayed that way through the years up until high school. I liked school for the most part and got joy from going, but a lot of that changed when I reached middle school. Middle school was hard mostly because my first year I gained a new friend but lost my best friend to jealousy. Then 7th grade rolled around and I lost my new friend too. 7th grade was one of the worst years of my life because I figured out I had a disease called PANDAS. This is basically an autoimmune disease caused by the strep virus attacking your brain. I developed OCD, tics, depression, and very hurtful thoughts. Not like suicidal or anything, but they were thoughts about hurting people or thoughts about how I did a bad thing when in all actuality I didn't. I could not control these thoughts, and that's what scared me the most. I never acted on them, but they drove me insane. This was also particularly hard for my parents who had gotten a divorce and now lived apart. They did not know what was wrong with me, just as I did not, and eventually, after many Google searches, my mom found a place that she thought could help me. The Cincinnati Women and Children's Hospital. They had worked with this disease before, even though most people don't actually think it exists. And because my mom wanted to know if this was what I had, we drove up there. It ended up being a pretty productive trip, and it was what we thought. It was Pandas. We decided to put me on antibiotics to treat it, and we drove back. At first, there wasn't really a difference, but after a few weeks, we started to notice improvements. Eventually, 8th grade rolled around, and I found myself feeling better. Also, I forgot to mention that I had been in band all this time, and because of that, I finally made some friends my 8th grade year. Brooklyn and Emmy were awesome, and we had a lot of fun hanging out together, and we remained friends until we started high school our 9th grade year. 9th grade was very scary. It was the year where we finally became what we thought at the time was adults. Brooklyn joined marching band that year, and it was a bit hard to keep up with her to hang out and stuff because she was always on a rigorous schedule. So me and Emmy stuck by each other most of the time. Sometimes it was hard though because our little group was getting its differences and we didn't really click anymore. At about this time, my home was also having a big change. We were moving into a real house in Hurricane. This put us so much closer to civilization and to school. The only thing was, my grandma was moving in with us. That wasn't really a problem for me at the time because I thought it would be so much fun. But I soon found out it might not have been a good idea. For now though, I was just happy we were moving. We got our house a little differently than most people got their houses though. We got it through this thing called Habitat for Humanity. Basically, my mom and grandma would work for them and they would build us a house. However, this kind of backfired because my grandmother wasn't really able to work much, so my mom had to double her original hours. But eventually, we got our home. School continued normally as this went on, and I was quite enjoying it. We had longer lunches and a new building, and it was great. Really great. Then, the second semester rolled around. Even though I didn't do marching band, I still wanted to stick with my saxophone. So, I did concert band in the spring. My first impressions were not the best. I was immediately the outsider. I didn't know what to do or where to go, and most of the people already knew each other. But eventually I found my section, and they were all very welcoming. Our band instructor was also very different. Some would even call him mad. He was one of the strictest and ruthless people I have ever known. But I guess he knows what he's doing because our band was the best. Sophomore year was a lot of the same types of stuff, except band was slowly consuming my life. I loved the people and the environment around it. It was very hard, but still there were moments that made it all worth it. My dad had also moved back into our house to help my mother and provide for us, even though they were still not together. Then, by the end of the year, most of my friends were begging me to do marching band, so eventually I gave in and signed up for the fall of my junior year. I had the full expectation of it being complete misery, and oh, was I right. We started in the summer, and our day consisted of PT, or physical training, where we would run a mile that got faster every day. Then we did reps of different exercises, and after that we would march all morning and break for lunch. After lunch, it did get a bit more fun because we got to do music indoors, which was a lot easier. Then the days would pretty much just repeat. It got easier after a while and it became a routine. Even though it was hard, I wouldn't change it for the world, even if I did want more water breaks. I had also met one of the best friends I have ever had that year, and we are still friends today. After that, senior year came up pretty quickly, and before I knew it, I was getting close to graduating. Senior year was particularly hard for me. Not only was I tired of school, but I had also went through some emotional trauma throughout the year that really messed with me. If my friends ever listen to this, I just want them to know how thankful I am that they stuck by me during that time. It meant the world to me and still does. I don't know how I would have gotten through that without you. Anyway, since it was my senior year, I had to start thinking about college. I never actually thought about college up until this point, but it seemed like the right thing to do, so I started looking. I had no idea what I was doing, as many people could tell by my ACT score, and how I waited till my senior year to take it. Besides that, I ended up settling on Marshall. It was a hard life choice for me, especially because my life was changing, but in the end, it worked out, and now I'm starting the true beginning of my life. I am currently majoring in computer science, and I am almost done with my first semester and haven't died yet, so I guess that's a plus. Anyway, all of the things I have talked about make me who I am today, and if I was given the chance to change something, I wouldn't. I am happy with how things are going, and everything that has been here with me up until this point makes me who I am. This is me. P.S. I just wanted to say that I could not have done this without my parents. They made me who I am, and I will never forget that. So thank you for always sticking by me. Also, thank you for this project. It was actually pretty fun, and it helped me put things into perspective. I hope you enjoyed this little insight into my life.